We'll have an introduction, a review of last week. We've already done that. Maslow's hierarchy, a thing called AFSCAR's report. Look at the DSS dashboard if it's still pulled up. Talk about who's answering the call and a summary. So the introduction, I have these quotes for us. It says, that is awfully small. The question bridging the scriptural mandate and the current state of foster care is, how is the church responding, if at all? And then this thought. This session will examine the latest statistical data as part of answering the question, what's the big deal? Okay? We'll keep moving through unless somebody screams, hey, stop. Okay? So the scriptural mandate, we looked at the handouts, and so what I would encourage you to remember and to take away from that, and I wanted you to struggle with what you took away before I told you what I want you to take away. I want you to take away that God is our creator. I intentionally didn't take us back into Genesis. Okay, just some things we just need to have an assumption on, right? God is the creator of all things. God is our heavenly Father. God is our provider. And then we are made in God's image, and we are called to care for orphans and widows as it is true worship. That's from James 1. So I broke that up into God is, and we are, to understand that we are made in His image, right? And so we're called to do what God has done and just keep duplicating that. So that's the scriptural mandate. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Now, here's where it gets a little sad, if you will. So the big three, there are three big things of how children typically enter foster care nationally, but more specifically in South Carolina. And I tried to put cute little things that make everything come up, and it's going to be more annoying than helpful, okay? So I'll just tell you that now. The first one is neglect. The second one is abuse. And the third is drugs. Right? So that is so small. I'll try to do better, y'all. Sorry. The Federal Child Abuse Prevention Treatment Act, CAPTA, legally defines neglect as any recent act or failure to act on the part of a parent or caretaker that presents an imminent risk of serious harm to the child. That's one of the major ways that children get into foster care. Right? Abuse, child abuse is hurting a child. It occurs when the child experiences harm or neglect. Often the abuser is someone the child knows. Let me just say that again. Often the abuser is someone the child knows. It may be a parent, family member, caregiver, or family friend. I don't know if that breaks my heart or makes me angry. So now we have neglect and abuse. Children are affected by alcohol and other drug use along three primary paths. In utero through the mother's use, environmentally through both family and community influences, and through their own use. So those are the three things that typically, if you had to guess why a child's in foster care, the kind of trauma they're coming out of, it's probably going to be one of those three things. There are other things, other issues, but they're a much smaller percentage. And so I wanted us to hit the big ones. Are we not recording? Oh, I'm sorry. And here's one of the other ones that's coming out in 2 minutes. And is there another one like this? I'm going to hold this one for the files. All right. Good.
Nope,
Thank you.
sorry.
You pass them out the same way I did. Back in my youth ministry days, I'd take him and just, he's got one. I thought it was just going to be him back there a while ago. That's why I did that. Sorry about that. All right, so neglect, abuse, and drugs, right? We good with that? Basic types of neglect are these: educational, failing to enroll a child in school, allowing a child to repeatedly skip school, or ignoring a child's special education needs. Emotional neglect, exposing a child to domestic violence or substance use, or not providing affection or emotional support. When we're reading these and you're thinking about it and chewing on it, put a child's image in your head The next type of neglect is inadequate supervision. Let me see better without it. Leaving a child who can't care for themselves home alone, not protecting a child from safety hazards, or leaving the child with inadequate caregivers. And before we judge too quickly on that one, consider that some parents have to go to work, and they're a single parent, and they can't find somebody to watch their kids. What do you do? If you don't go to work, you lose your job, then you lose your kids because you can't feed your kids, right? I need to quit. Okay, let me just read what I've got. Medical neglect is denying or delaying necessary or recommended medical treatment. Physical neglect is failing to care for a child's basic needs like hygiene, clothing, nutrition, or shelter, or abandoning a child. Are y'all familiar with Daniel's Law? It allows people to legally drop children off at places like firehouses, police stations, churches. One of the attorneys I spoke with suggested that we make a sign that says even though it's common knowledge that churches are a place of drop-off, to put a sign out by the road that we are a Daniel's Law drop-off location. Then when Judy comes to church, she always wonders what she's going to find.
Just
yeah, it'd be Judy's number.
That's a couple of miles,
Yeah, I thought it was a great idea. Again, all I can do is just keep kind of putting chum in the water, so to speak. I can't really push us as a pastor tonight. I just have to put these things out there for you. Okay. All right, so that's the basic types of neglect. Again, there's more kinds, but that's it. Now, these are the things where if somebody says, hey, DSS, I think this is happening, you should go check it out. They send a caseworker to check it out. They have a certain time period to check it out. Then if it's deemed to be so, it does have to go through a court system. A caseworker in South Carolina can't just take a child out of a home. It has to be adjudicated. And so there's more than one set of eyes on it, which is good and bad at the same time, so that you don't have to worry about your neighbor who may have a beef with you calling and getting your children taken out. All right, so that's neglect. The next is abuse, basic types of abuse. Physical is slapping, pushing, punching, kicking, shaking, or burning a child, or not allowing a child to eat, drink, or use the bathroom. We actually had to write this down. Okay. Emotional abuse is frequently verbal, involving insults. That's not written right. It's frequently verbal, involving insults, constant criticism, harsh demands, threats, and yelling. Sexual abuse is rape, incest, fondling, indecent exposure, using a child in pornography, or exposing a child to pornographic material. Medical abuse is intentionally trying to make a child sick or not treating a medical condition. And then there's this question. Is child neglect a form of child abuse? Yes. Child neglect is a form of child abuse. Neglect is failing to provide a child with food, shelter, education, medical care, and emotional support. So these are starting to stack on top of each other. So neglect can be abuse. Abuse can be neglect. It's crazy. Types of drug use, drug abuse. Studies show that millions of children in the United States are estimated to live with at least one parent who has a drug or alcohol problem. These include alcohol abuse, prescription drug abuse, opioid addiction, and illicit drug use. So when I was going through I told you last time that there was a common thread that I would always ask if there was racism in the foster care system, and we can chase that rabbit later on. But here's what one person said in response to that related to drugs. They said, opioids are not an issue in the homes of people of color, whether they're African American or Hispanic or whatever, because opioids are a rich person's drug. You ever think of that? So there's that, all right? I just thought, there's no charge for that part, I'm just throwing it out there. Drug and alcohol abuse can make an unstable home environment. Parents who are drunk or intoxicated may forget to pay the bills, bring drugs into their home, and potentially invite other dangers. This is a larger problem. I probably should put that in red. That's a larger problem than it shows up in the statistics. A lot of times the neglect and endangerment happens because not necessarily what's happening as an origin of the home, but what comes into the home because of what is happening there. Does that make sense? A lot of times a person who will be on a sex registry list, a child endangerment list of some kind, will be in a home because there are drugs there. And so when people see the traffic in and out of the house, it will trigger a visit. And when that's found to be true, the child is typically pulled. Households are affected by addiction are also at a higher risk of these things: domestic abuse, interpersonal partner violence, financial problems, food insecurity, and child neglect. So the cautionary statement that we have to think about here is whenever somebody is poor, it does not mean they're abusing their children. Whenever they have financial problems, it does not mean they're abusing their children. Whenever they can't make ends meet and there's food insecurity, it doesn't mean that they're abusing their children. These things have to add up. You know, we did something not terribly long ago, about helping to feed folks that had food insecurity in their home. We're called to those ministries as well, right? So this is in here for the purpose of saying sometimes when we come alongside a foster family, we're coming alongside these same things that we need to be doing. You know, I was hungry and you fed me. I was naked and you clothed me. All these things are, every bit of Matthew 25 is right there. Even the part about visiting me in prison, right? Because a lot of times one or both of the parents are going to be incarcerated. And it leads to what's quickly referred to as the TPR, which is the termination of parental rights. Think about your children. How would you like to be in a situation where you were going to not just lose your children for a little while to foster care, but you're going to lose them forever because the judge in the system says that you're not fit to be a parent? If you can't get your mind around that one, I think I'm going to be able to get David White to come and lead us into an exercise that will help us get our mind around that so that we can develop a more compassionate. I saw that one blink. I was a little worried.
It's been blinking.
It always blinks.
A lot.
It's just God blinking at you. All right, so we got those, right? Drugs, neglect, and abuse, right? We're good with those? Not good. We're good to move forward. Any questions so far? All right. So here's this thing I showed you, or talked to you about last week, is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And over on, is my mouse show up there? The bottom line, the purple area, that's physiological needs, and that's where foster care exists to function. All right, it's actually both of those. The first two, physiological needs at the bottom, and then safety needs. It's food, water, warmth, and rest. And then the next level up is security and safety. That's foster care. Okay, society, the church, is going to be responsible for coming alongside and helping provide the atmosphere and situation where a child can move up that hierarchy, where they have belongingness and love needs, which is the yellow one. Can y'all read that at all? Is it? The yellow one is belongingness and love needs, and it's intimate relationships and friends. It's hard to bring children who have been in those three things into a relationship where they're going to trust anybody, all right? So these are psychological needs, that belongingness and love needs. And then the blue line is esteem needs, which is prestige and feeling of accomplishment. I'm telling you, you're gonna walk with some folks that either you're gonna be with, if you choose to be involved in a mentoring way, or a guardian ad litem way, or something like that, you're gonna be in that valley with the child. And the guardian ad litem I spoke with, who's gonna be here next time, said, the beauty is watching a child have that fog lifted off of them, where they can start doing these things and start accomplishing. So it just takes a little while. You're gonna be in that valley with them, and if we choose to do things that we come along just beside the foster family, you're gonna be giving respite and some relief to foster parents who are just exhausted because they've been in the valley 24/7, right? All right. So we have the basic needs, which is what foster care is designed for, and then we have trying to pull the children up the ladder. The next one is psychological needs, I just told you about, and then finally we're trying to get the children up to that top part. That let's not call that orange. Let's call that a tangerine. Self-actualization, achieving one's full potential, including creative activities. So why do we want to get the children up this hierarchy? So that they can be functioning adults is one way that the world might put it. Here's how the church would put it. So that they can be entirely the person that God created them to be. Okay. I'm not sure what each child that winds up in foster care was designed to be, but I know that if all we're doing is providing those bottom things where it's food, water, warmth, rest, security, and safety, well, yes, we've potentially saved their lives, but have we done anything other than keep them alive so that they can age out? And those statistics I told you about last week, where they have lower chance of getting any kind of higher education, lower chance of any kind of good paying job, lower chance of any kind of health insurance, probable psychological and emotional counseling is in their future. It's there's a lot of difference between doing what the law says and keeping them warm, safe, fed, where they're supposed to be, and then there's the other part of developing children into who God created them to be. The systematic approach to foster care. This is the small print up under where it says Maslow's hierarchy. The systematic approach to foster care as it exists today is designed to meet the basic needs. To provide for the psychological and self-actualization needs will require investment of personal time and the building of relationships. The investment of personal time and the building of relationships. There's no way around that, y'all. The church can assist this by coming alongside foster families and foster care administrative personnel. I hope you'll let that little pyramid, whether you can read it or not, let that burn into your minds. And I think for next time I'm going to try to put these slides on a paper so that you can have those and actually read them. Okay. Questions about that so far?
I think the key comment in this is just helping people break the cycle.
Yeah.
Because if they repeat this cycle as parents, just if you can give them some sort of leg up. So there's just tragic stories.
Right.
And we drive past it every day and don't know.
Yeah, the thing I shared with last week, you don't see it till you see it, and then you can't unsee it, and then it starts showing up everywhere. So so we've talked about how they wind up there. What is it that we want to do with them once they wind up there, right? And now I want to give you some statistics. Let's see, I'll take some of these in that direction, this direction. This is what's going to be on the slides in just a minute. And I know if you couldn't read those last slides, there's no way you'd be able to read these. I wonder if, David, I'm going to try to pull that screen down for a minute. I may have created it.
I think yes.
I don't know how to make this thing project.
He has to register this.
All right. So next time, instead of your Bibles, bring your reading glasses and your magnifying glasses.
Send them back.
I don't know how to make this particular thing show up on the screen.
Well, I got them all. Fred, they're not here.
Okay, so there's on the first page, this is AFCARS is a report of statistics that comes out. I think it's quarterly. Anyway, this is the latest one available, and it's online. I mean, you don't have to be in touch with anybody for this. You just go out there and get it. But I wanted you to see some of the things in that first section on the first page. It says numbers at a glance. I've got this on the screen. I just can't get it up there, and I don't think it would matter if I could. The first thing that says number in foster care on September 30th of the fiscal year. Now, this was at the end of 2020, right? They got to have time to get the numbers together.
Is this just South Carolina, or is it national?
This is national. I'm going to take you to the DSS board.
Yeah, right.
I think I'm going to take you to the DSS board. I don't know how to get my screen to show up outside of that PowerPoint. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, you duplicate your screen.
Thought it was. While Beth is saving the day once again, the number in foster care as of September 30th of 2020, 407,493 children. And that's nationwide, but you just divide that by 50, and it's still a staggering number. And then just straight down from there, the number entered foster care during that year, 216. Oh, bless your heart. Now I can just find that report, right?
Why did it come down so much in 2020?
Yeah, so I've got a theory on that. It's not guaranteed that it's right, but I'll give it to you. There's a group called the Casey Foundation. The Caseys are the folks who started UPS, and so they took an interest in foster care, and they wanted to try to help out, and they pumped a lot of money into it. And so one of the things that came out of that is a new way of counting, and so there's been this big push for another kind of foster care that is called kinship care. And so there's licensing for foster homes where they're unrelated, right? And then there's also either licensed or unlicensed kinship care. Like a grandmother may be considered as a place where a child can go, and the system doesn't have to either maintain control of that child in the way they would in a non-related home, and it doesn't show up on the books in the same way. So if a child's in a licensed kinship care, then it's going to show up under a different category, but it'll still show up. If a child's in a kinship home of a relative, but not a licensed relative, then that child's not going to show up at all. And that's important in a couple of ways. One is there's a place over in Spartanburg called P.S. I Love You that has a fantastic thing going on, and their major thrust is this, that they have this incredible place where foster parents can come in when they're getting a new placement. They can shop for clothes and diapers and toys and everything they need in all ages. I mean, they are just stocked to the brim in there, and it's just a fantastic ministry. But as I was touring it and interviewing them, up on the wall it had these two lists, and one said foster families, and it was this list, and one said kinship care, and it was this list. And I said, well, same kids, why are we doing this? And I had trouble getting an explanation. The closest I've come to an explanation is this: if you're in a foster home, there's a good chance you're going to be a distance away from your home and your surroundings, which is even more tearing, right, of relationships. And so they need more things. If you're in a kinship care, chances are good that you're near your home and you can get your own things. That's the closest to a decent explanation I've received. I don't know how accurate that is, but there's a significant difference in foster care and kinship care. And so you want to hear about that. And I interviewed a lady very near to this church that is in kinship care, delightful lady. And I would have had her come next Tuesday, but nighttime for her is the most valuable time, right? And so you'll just have to get the flavor from others who are able to come. Did I even answer the question? I get on a tangent, I just forget. If I missed it, just ask it again, right? All right, so we have all these things. Y'all can't see that at all, can you? Does that help you? So there's these numbers down here. I'll put the glasses back on so I can keep bouncing back and forth. Down at the bottom, we have, in that one, the number of adopted with public child welfare agency involved during the year. Yeah. Okay. Even better. Thank you. I'm on the wrong line. The bottom line in that section, the number waiting to be adopted for whom parental rights for all living parents were terminated as of the last day of the fiscal year. The number waiting to be adopted, and they have nowhere to turn because all their living parents have had their parental rights terminated, 63,815. Just generically divide by 50, we've got a problem. Parentless, they are in effect now being parented by the government. And the ages, the next one down on the left, these down here, these beginning at 13 years, down through 20 years. In South Carolina, it's only 18. But look at how many children of those ages are going to age out. And I told you what's waiting on those folks, right? There's a huge number of sex trafficking waiting on these groups of people. And they're already being groomed in some situations before they even get out. So there's some work to be done, okay? All right, I may just have to let y'all look at some of these on your own. This is a number over here under the case plan goal, still on the first page. Reunify with parents. That's the goal to reunify with parents is 216,000. To adopt is 110,000, and emancipation is 17,299. It's a gob of people. I keep worrying and highlighting the emancipation thing because it just scares me silly. What's going to happen, because that's not just one number, because they're going to live a life and they're going to, like Steve was talking about, that cycle's going to continue. Page 2.
Emancipation, is that when they age out?
And it's 18 in South Carolina, unless there's a few reasons they won't. Average length of time in care is between 14 and 21 months. Again, the length is somewhat important. The number of placements is critical. Then, if we get further down on the right side of page 2, circumstances associated with the child's removal. Here's those things we were talking about just now. Neglect, 139,000. Drug abuse by the parents, 75,000. Caretaker inability to cope, 28,000. Physical abuse, 27,000. Housing, 20,000. Child behavior problem, 16,000. Parent incarceration, 13,000. That surprised me. I thought it would have been higher. Parental alcohol abuse, 12,000. Abandonment, call that 10,000. Sex abuse, 8,600. Drug abuse by the child, 4,700. Child disability, you can read all the rest of those. Does that break your heart? It frustrates me that everybody wants the church out of their business, but yet this is exactly where the church needs to be. Page 3, I got a good night. Third page, column to the right, reasons for discharge out of foster care. Emancipation again. They were discharged out of the system, 20,000. Remember that lady I told you about that was on the Today Show that said, I don't exist? 20,000 of them last year. All right, flipping over to page 5, actually. No, I'm going a little further now. Let's go all the way to the back page. Page 6. I'm going to pick this back up. Get a little too wound up on these things sometimes. Slip down here. I did have one line there. I'm going to skip over some things I was going to share with you because I get too involved. The relationship of adoptive parents to the child, parent to adoption, prior to adoption. So these are who are adopting the folks, right? Left-hand column. Non-relative is 11%. But look here, foster parents are 54% of those who are adopting. Step parents are adopting 0 according to this. I mean, as far as percentage, but it's showing 100 last year. Other relative is 35%. So between foster parents and other relatives, 49,000 children. It's just staggering. Okay, those are national numbers. Hang on to them, use them, however you want to. And I got to think I have to do other things. All right. So the DSS, South Carolina Department of Social Services, has a thing called a foster care dashboard. Everybody cross your fingers. This is their dashboard. That's not good. Okay, good. All right. So they have this, and of all of South Carolina, the 2 places that keep trading back and forth for having the most foster care cases is Richland County and Greenville County. Not something to be proud of, right? Right. Currently, Richland is ahead of Greenville. Richland has, I think it says 614. The total in the state is 3,871. Richland has 600 of those. Greenville has 431. You remember what I told you last time? That we sit, yeah. So here's Greenville County, right? And we sit about right there. Just with Lawrence, just inside of our ministry footprint, right? And so Lawrence has 107 cases, so we could say we have 500. All right, so let's do this. Let's click on Greenville County and take a look at some of the numbers. The months in care, the overwhelming percentages, this is the months of 0 to 2, 3 to 5, on down through here. The percentages, the worst is at 24 or more months. 1,286, 33.22%. So we're having a long time in care. Age range across. This is comparison, but it's Greenville County numbers. Age 13 to 17 is 34%. It's kind of split. 0 to 6 is 39%. So there's a big need at every age group. There's not a bit of difference between male and female. It's 48% and 51%. Race, if you were to break those down, white is 51%, so you can assume that everything else is 49%. So it's kind of even on those. Placement type is this is very tiny, so I'm just reading it to you. Family-like homes is 64%. Congregate care, which, so group homes, they used to be able to house, I told you about children existing in DSS offices, which is a safer place, which is sad, right? They exist there because they can't go into group homes because a challenge that's been pretty much nationwide is a law called Michelle H. And it means that state after state after state was getting challenged with this, and each state was winding up losing and paying gobs of money and court fees and all that. So South Carolina just settled and said no more group homes. The most we can have in any given home, I believe, is 6. So it creates all this deeper need for foster families and people come alongside foster families, right? And so that was going along, and now we have Roe v. Wade that's been overturned, right? So we've got this overworked system up here already in a culture. I'm not getting into the theological debate of Roe v. Wade, but I'm going to talk about it. So we have this scenario before Roe v. Wade was overturned. Now it's overturned in a system where you had unwanted children not being born, creating this system. You now have unwanted children being born, which is going to further overwhelm the system. Are you with me? I'm just talking numbers. Don't get caught up in the theological debate on that. It's going to be a growing problem as month by month goes by. Think of the time of a pregnancy. There's going to be some that enter the system this month. There's going to be some that enter the next month until a full typical pregnancy will have run. Then you'll know the impact of that on the system. I don't know the numbers, but I can surely anticipate them. Okay, so the needs that we've been presenting are going to be even higher.
Will adoption fit in there?
Would adoption do it now?
Fit in there?
Yes. So when a child goes into foster care, the primary desire is to reunite them with their biological parents, and almost everything has tried to do that, and that's part of the problem. But if I were a parent having my child separated from me, I'd want them to try everything possible to reunite too. So I can see both sides of that coin. But at a certain point, either the child does get reunited, or the parent has that TPR, termination of parental rights, and the child is then available for adoption. And a lot of times it's the foster home. And if a child is likely going to wind up with a TPR in an adoption situation, they'll tell the foster parents that before they place it. It's like, this is a placement that's moving toward adoption. Remember I told you when they go in, they're placed under a supervisor for the desire and design to do the things to reunite with a home, or they're put under a foster care or a DSI supervisor of caseworkers with a design to move them into adoption. And that's why when they move in and out of the home, they get different caseworkers. It gets really messy, right? So yes and no. Yeah. There'll probably be more and more. But then, when the children come into your home, it takes a special kind of person to be able to adopt and do it well, to foster and do it well, and then adopt. So again, I'm trying to move us as a church into coming alongside those families. I'm going to tell you again, I might tell you every class, my first desire was to come alongside the children, right? That's the pastor in me, want to come alongside the children and rescue them, coming with a cowboy hat, right? Can't do it. You saw the length of stay in a home, right? You're not going to be alongside those children long enough to make a difference. But you can make a difference on that home, in that foster home. And you can be a presence in that foster home for every child that comes through there. And if every church were to pick this model up and employ it and be alongside of every foster family in their ministry footprint, then the church, not a specific church, but the church, will be alongside and be a witness and draw that child and that family into hopefully coming up that Maslow's hierarchy. So that was a good question because it allowed me to kind of draw everything together. But this website, y'all, it's under the scdss.gov, and then the foster care dashboard. And all these stats are sitting out there. And you can go from county to county. And if you were to look at Lawrence County, you get those same months in care and the breakdown there. Lawrence County, the percentages, looks like that's their biggest right there. 3 to 5 months in care seems to be their largest need right there, followed by 9 to 11. But they have 17 cases in Lawrence County that are 24 plus months, right? But these short numbers of stay, even though they're traumatic for the children and their family, that's evidence that we can't focus, we can't design what we do on specific children because they're not in a specific home long enough. Right? But the ones that are there long enough stay there too long, you know, and so you might be able to come alongside those.
You mentioned, I was going to say, you mentioned this the other day about being with the foster families and the grieving process when a placement goes back. I think that's, Bentley and Peyton's younger brother was probably the fourth child that our friend over in Spartanburg County fostered. She had several babies. The trick of adoption straight out of fostering is complicated because the goal is always to reunite with the parents. So you have a lot of people that get so excited over this baby, and then the baby's taken back because the mom and dad can't interact. And they set up bars where it's a challenge for them to. It's not a challenge. It's a logical challenge for them to do things like prove they're working and prove they're cleaned up their home and all this other stuff. There's still that chance. So that's stressful on parents. You know, set a parent's heart to get into the foster system to adopt because there's no guarantee. Bentley and Peyton to us were one and done. I mean, they came to us at 18 months, and we found out that Bentley was in a group home, and we got him 3.5 years, and you know, a couple years later they were ours. And TPR here, but that was surreal.
That was my next question. Some foster parents have got to be trained. I don't think I could be a foster parent
No, me either.
and then let them go.
But you know, you don't have. here's what the pain I hear from foster parents is this: there's no communication that is effective, you know, with their caseworker. So that's a struggle. The other one is the way the system is designed. They can have a child for months and months and months, and then at 8 o'clock that morning they can receive a phone call that they're going to take that child out of that home, and at 2 o'clock that same day they're gone. And they said, here's the problem. It's like having a family member die, but you still see them walking around.
And then you're always concerned about what's happening to that child, and it goes back to the parents.
Right.
And so many times we hear in the news that something horrible has
Right.
happened to these children.
And it's not the first time, that's right.
Yeah.
But then there, on the other side, there's the cases where it works out, and the news doesn't report those because it's not, it
It's
doesn't
not newsworthy.
hit our ears, right? So there's all that.
Are there so many times that a child can go back when they finally say no more? No?
Not really, but I would, you know, the judges will see the record in front of them. There are other needs to be able to come alongside families and know the family story. When a DSS attorney walks in, they have a file. If they had some, and this attorney told me this too, they said if they had somebody that was different than a guardian ad litem, but somebody from the church that would come alongside that family and know that family and be able to tell that attorney in 5 minutes a capsule of what's going on and the way they saw it, they said that would be invaluable. Otherwise, they're reading a case, they're listening to a guardian ad litem, they're listening to a DSS caseworker. Caseworkers don't always tell the truth, do they?
Well, you get new ones that drop your hat too. One of them show up, you know, you're supposed to do a caseworker visit, and all of a sudden you got a different card that you don't recognize. They're like, we're here for our appointment.
Yeah.
Who are you? Hi, I'm Susie. I'm your new caseworker.
My guardian ad litem contact, who's going to be here next Tuesday, she said she hated getting phone calls from the good caseworkers because a text or way they communicate. She said if they ever got a phone call, they were calling to say goodbye. That they had just had enough, or they were going to go do something they could get paid. So there's a lot of, you know, there's just so much stuff out there, and the opportunity for the church is just baffling. And I'm 60 years old, and I'm just now seeing it. And I worked for DSS when I got out of college. I went into the Attorney General's office as an investigator. And then they transferred the entire child support agency branch of the Attorney General's office over to DSS. And I saw our caseload go from 3,000 to over 300,000 in just a few years. The numbers are baffling. Well, we're not called to save the world. We're called to do what we can in this ministry footprint, right? Right. So I want to challenge. I can't take you through all this. I want to challenge y'all to go to that DSS website, the foster care dashboard, and just look at the numbers. These are the state numbers over here, okay? And these on this side are going to be the different county numbers. It's just a phenomenal thing. And let's see if I can slide over and show you some more of those. More of the state, Greenville County months in care, 246 are in, where, I can't figure that out. Down here, 24 plus. So y'all see that right there? That means that 246 of the people, which represents 57% of those in Greenville County, have been in care for more than 24 months. The statistics are not good for what happens in that. Okay, 137, 150, all that's kind of a split. So there's just you can look at numbers until they make you angry or sick or both at the same time. And so just a challenge to look at those. Let me quickly see if there was anything else on that PowerPoint that I wanted to make sure I showed y'all tonight. Okay, so yes. I'll get from current slide. I amazed myself. All right. So the foster care stakeholders, you can't read that either. I'll just read it to you. People involved. This is DSS with like caseworkers. This is courts with the judge and all the people that go along with these folks, right? Then you have these attorneys on both sides. Then you have gals or guardians ad litem. Then you have those in kinship care. You have foster parents. You have police. You have yada yada yada. What's missing?
Church.
Yeah, the one place that has a mandate to be there is the one place that's missing. I don't know how we let it go so long. So we'll see. All right, one last slide, I think. It says 12 to 15, but I don't remember what's beyond that. Jason Johnson, who was a big author in all this, writing about one of his books, Reframing Foster Care, the gospel response. He says, foster parents face a unique set of circumstances and experience a wide array of emotions that few can relate to. Their journey is one of equal parts beauty and brokenness, joy and heartache, excitement and exhaustion. There's no textbook on how to be a foster parent, no formula, no simple 3-step guide. But there's hope in God's capacity to bring great beauty out of tragic brokenness. This is the gospel, the lens through which you can filter your foster parenting journey and ultimately find strength, motivation, and courage that you need to be sustained along the way. I thought that was just fantastic. And so we could use that as encouragement too. There are several books that I'll put out there for us as we come out of this and into a church ministry. So the summary slide is this. The church must accept our scriptural mandate as followers of Christ, reclaim our identity in God our Creator, and step into the ministry of foster care. We are the missing link. We are the missing link. We become irrelevant. We become irrelevant. So we have to start being relevant. Right? So the last thing I have for you is thank you. Did I make it? 7 o'clock. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this night in which numbers have baffled us. Help us to turn those numbers into little children's faces and help us to turn them into teenagers who are just lost and about to be lost in a broken world. God, help us and call us, continue calling to us. Keep us safe as we travel home and give us a night of rest that we might raise up tomorrow to be instruments that bring peace and glory to you and you alone. We pray this in Christ's holy name. Amen. Thank y'all so much. Now, next Tuesday, it's not Monday next week, right? It's Tuesday and Thursday because we have Halloween competing. And we have Tuesday night, and then Wednesday night is church conference, and Thursday night is the other class. Tuesday night, we have guests coming that are foster parents and such. And so come with questions that you might have for them. Foster parents of different arrays and a guardian ad litem. So We may not have tables, I may just have them at a table and let y'all ask them questions, okay? Cool. All right, thank y'all so much.